Hi, my name is Luke, and I'm now going to be doing a walkthrough and a live demonstration of the project that my sister and I have come up with. The contraption here in front of you is essentially what our project is. Up in the front here we just have a regular two-wheel bicycle, which we modified a little bit for our needs. And then in the back here we have a contraption that is essentially harnessing some energy from the circular motion of the back wheel of the bicycle. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first do a little walkthrough of all of the parts involved in this project. And then we're going to do a live demonstration by powering up this television over here. Alright, so let's start in the back here with this circular device. Which I mentioned earlier, this is an alternator from a car. And when an alternator spins, it generates a DC current. So we have this big tractor belt here hooked up to the back wheel of this tire, which is raised about 2 inches off the ground, such that when the person pedals, this belt is going to turn. It's going to turn the alternator, and we're going to be able to get some power out of that. And then this little triangle down here is essentially putting some tension on the belt, because as we apply more and more of a load to our alternator, if there weren't any tension on the belt, the belt would actually start slipping. Okay, now one thing about alternators is that they need to be magnetically polarized somehow, because there's not a permanent magnet built into an alternator. So in order to do that, one thing that we also have way up here in the front is a little 12-volt DC battery. And this DC battery is essentially going to jump start our alternator. And then once we have the alternator running, we're going to use the energy generated by the alternator itself to keep the alternator going. And we're actually going to disconnect the battery from the circuit and continue our experiment from there. Now up here we have a couple of light switches, and you guys will be able to make reference to these in the various photos that we're going to have up on our website. So if you can't see anything too well from the camera, that's okay. But essentially what we have here are two light switches. One of them is to take the battery in and out of the circuit, and the other one is to turn the load on and off. And we basically built these in here because such that, like, when we first start pedaling, if we have the load on right away, it's a little more difficult to get going. Whereas if we start with the load off and then turn the load on, it's easier to maintain the current that way. Alright, I guess the last important piece here is an inverter. Now, like I mentioned, we get about 14 volts of current from this alternator, and you can't really run a regular home appliance off of 14 volts. It has to be inverted to 120 volts AC current in order to actually work. So that's what this does here. It is tied into the circuit, and it's essentially stepping that 12 volts up to 120 in exchange for a lower amperage. Alright, now that you have a basic understanding of the different parts and components associated with our project, I'm going to go ahead and do a live demonstration and power up that television over here with my own energy by pedaling the bicycle. And I know it's kind of hard to see the various components and stuff on camera, but the other thing that we also provide on our website is a wiring diagram showing exactly how all of this stuff is connected and wired up. So for those of you that are interested in the science behind it, you will be able to see that in the wiring diagram. Alright, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and power up that television. I have a remote here which I'm going to use to turn the television on once I get going. Then I'm also just going to point out these cables here. We have two cables coming out of the back of the television. This cable here is none other than a coax cable, so that we actually get some sort of reception when we turn the TV on. And then this other cable down here, this is the power cable, which we have plugged right into our inverter. So, let's get started. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is turn the battery on so that we can get that magnetic field going on our alternator. And then after the battery is on and everything is going, I'm going to go ahead and take the battery out of the circuit by flipping the switch back off up here. And then I'm actually going to turn on the load, and then we're going to turn the television on. So here we go. Alright,